Welcome back to another episode of Behind the Lens. And if you're listening right now, that means it's Monday. And I'm Debbie Elias, creator and host of Behind the Lens, film critic with movie reviews and interviews around the world, in the U.S. and abroad, in print and online 24/7. But every Monday, I am right here on adrenalineradio.com, live with Behind the Lens, where we go behind the lens and below the line with directors, screenwriters, producers, composers, actors, every varying cinematographers, every facet of film, television production, in addition to music and, on occasion, stage. Very excited this week. We have thrilled with my first guest who'll be coming up at the quarter-hour mark, Ashley Bell. You all know her for The Last Exorcism, her feature film acting debut, The Last Exorcism 2, The Day, The Marine, Homefront. But Ashley has, and most recently, Carnage Park. But Ashley has also ventured into producing and directing. And back in 2013, doing press for The Marine Homefront, we started talking about the documentary that Ashley's going to talk about today, Love and Bananas. It is an amazing, amazing documentary. I am so excited. It is finally done. It's taken 5 years, and we're going to find out about this 5-year process from Ashley. But most exciting about Love and Bananas is that it is the opening night film for Earth Day weekend on April 20th as part of the second annual 2018 Earth Focus Environmental Film Festival hosted by KCET and Link TV. Last year, the inaugural year of the film, Ed Begley Jr. was a special guest on the show, talking about his documentary, talking about his web series, talking about his house, his eco-friendly house. Now we have Ashley this year talking about Love and Bananas and the preservation and saving of Asian elephants in Cambodia, Thailand. We so often hear about African elephants, but now we're going to hear about Asian elephants, with the story focusing around one incredible Asian elephant conservationist, Lek Chailert, and focusing on the story of Noi Na, a 70-year-old elephant, partially blind, who they rescue and bring to the Elephant Nature Park, which is run by Lek. The journey is amazing, and to see the love between the elephants, Lek, the people that provide care and support, because all of the elephants at her particular conservation park are all disabled in some fashion. But they're given a new life, and they get to roam and be as elephants should be, rather than being abused for logging or for trekking, carting people around for tours and whatnot. So I can't wait to talk to Ashley about this. And at the half-hour mark, we've got writer-director Tony Vidal and actor Jake Thomas. Most of you will remember Jake from Lizzie McGuire TV show, Lizzie McGuire movie, as Lizzie McGuire's younger brother, Matt. But they're here to talk about a winter break adventure called Baja. Seems rather appropriate to be looking forward to winter break when spring break is just now wrapping up. So it's going to be a lot of fun. But before we get to any of our special guests, we're going to talk a little bit about Chappaquiddick, Ted Kennedy. The new movie Chappaquiddick is now out. It stars Jason Clarke as Ted Kennedy, Jim Gaffigan as Paul Markham. Written by Andrew Logan, Taylor Allen. This is one of the most factually concise tellings of the story of Chappaquiddick you will ever see. Andrew and Taylor actually pulled all the inquest hearing transcripts from which they developed the script, in addition to doing other interviews, meeting with people. It is extremely compelling. What is even more interesting is watching Jason Clarke's performance, because we see a Ted Kennedy that the public doesn't know. Everybody knew him for so long as the lion in the Senate. What we see here is a man who is walking the line of a breakdown following the death of his brother, following the death of Martin Luther King the year prior. A man who really has just the Kennedy curse, for lack of a better description. Clarke shows us a very ineffectual man, a man who is more like a little boy trying on his father's new suit, which doesn't fit. I spoke with Jason Clarke, but I also spoke in length with director JOHN CURRAN, who is also best known probably for The Painted Veil and Tracks, the beautiful Mia Wasikowska movie shot in the outback of Australia, also based on a true story. So take a listen now to my interview with JOHN CURRAN as we talk about what went into the making of Chappaquiddick, including shooting on that famous bridge itself. You did something that we have never seen, based on script and based on your visual tonal bandwidth. You know, what we see on screen with Chappaquiddick is not Ted Kennedy, the lion in the Senate.
No.
We've got a very insecure, ineffective man who reminded me of a kid trying to fit into his dad's suit that's too big.
Yeah.
It doesn't fit.
Yeah.
And you really bring that to life. And this is something that nobody has seen. I mean, I remember when Chappaquiddick happened. It happened on my birthday, on my 11th birthday.
Yeah, mine was on my 9th.
And of course, then we had the moon landing.
Yeah.
So to see this brought out, to also see you guys not make the moon landing front and center, because that's what everybody more or less now remembers. And they don't remember who Ted Kennedy was, and they don't really remember Chappaquiddick. And with all these dark undercurrents that we now see come to light, what you also very smartly do is your visual tone. You and the wonderful cinematographer that you have, and always have, the two of you create this lightness in look. Sun streaming, the use of yellow in costuming, in cardigan sweaters, rooms, light tones, but always with sun, always metaphorically, the light. We're shining the light on what's happening here. And it's an incredible, incredible metaphoric juxtaposition. How did you go about designing this construct?
Well, it's when you're doing a period film, you have a lot of choices to make about how much you pull a nostalgic tone into the photography, the production design, ultimately the coloring of the film. And, I wasn't shooting on film. It was the first project I've done that I haven't shot on film, so I was a little bit, sad for me. And I would have liked to shot on film, but the reality is that, we've gotten to the point with digital cameras that it was a hard argument to make not to shoot on the Alexa. But we didn't want to do an over period look, and I did want to capture this sort of dark story in this sort of resort environment. Chappaquiddick is nothing if it's not kind of a bright, sunny, beautiful island. And the resort town of Edgartown and Martha's Vineyard, I wanted to feel summery and in this, sort of wealthy person's playground that this dark tragedy takes place. And I knew that a lot of the film was going to be taking place and flashing back to night, So it is night and day, light and shadow. So there is sort of like graphic, metaphorical decisions that we made. But yeah, I think that we wanted a certain patina that felt somewhat nostalgic and sun-drenched and backlit, but, not so overt that it became, distracting.
Mm-hmm. I think it's beautiful.
Thank you.
The visual tone is exquisite, and it plays against, this portrait that it really is a paradox. So we see this unfolding on so many levels within the film, and also something that you do that I found interesting. You a lot of wide shots and mid shots, as opposed to extreme close-ups. You judiciously use those, which I think adds more gravitas and impact, and also widens our scope.
Yeah, I shot widescreen for a couple reasons. One, I wanted a wider frame where I could isolate Ted at times. But, we had a very ambitious schedule. I mean, really, I crammed a 40-day shoot into 32 days, probably more like what should have been a 45-day shoot into 32 days. And I didn't want to cut the script. I've done that before, and I've regretted it. And so Maurice Alberti, my DP, and I, we made a decision that to find a graphic language for the film where we held on wide shots of, the advisors, for instance. There's not a lot of coverage in there, and let scenes play out in wide. Instead of, going into additional coverage and adding time to our days, we had to... I didn't want to shoot run and gun and have it be sloppy, kind of a handheld vibe to it. I wanted it composed and I wanted it elegant. And part of that was like, okay, let's be reductive in the way we come at it. So it's a simpler told story in a lot of ways.
No, it works beautifully for this story. Yeah. Something that we also see is the relationship, how you develop the relationship between Ted Kennedy and Mary Jo Kopechne. Kate Mara is exquisite.
Yeah, she's good.
With the performance. And I'm curious, and maybe the boys are more, more informed on this particular issue, but how much of that relationship was based on the inquest, research, and, talk about town, and how much was hypothetical, this is what they might have been talking about in the car?
Well, there's no evidence that they had any physical relationship. And if I found any, it would be in the film. I didn't preclude the option that might have happened. I think it's open to interpretation in the film. Did they or didn't they? And I purposely did that. I was very against any scenes where we see them, having a physical moment together.
Because there's never any evidence to it.
No, but for all I know, it could have happened. For all I know, they could have had like a 3-week affair. I don't know. So there's the suggestion of it, and then there's the suggestion that maybe it didn't happen. So that's that. But from a lot of my whatever I could find on her, and they could find on her, it's clear that, like Teddy, she was devastated by Bobby's death, and she was an integral part of his, campaign. And so were those other girls. They weren't slouches. They were highly educated, very intelligent, ambitious, competent women who went on to become, in their own right, all very successful. So we wanted to kind of revise history in that regard in terms of her, that she wasn't just some floozy secretary. She was something of substance and had ambitions. And the fact is that after Bobby was killed, she left Washington. She was devastated by that. And my thing was that what's going to unite these two isn't a sexual attraction, it's a mutual depression over Bobby's death. That to me was what connects the two of them. And it builds from that. So, I sketched the relationship with the guys of two people sort of united in their grief.
No, I mean, it plays so well, especially when you see what happens after at the bridge. And, of course, shooting at the bridge just adds so much history and authenticity. How important was that for you to shoot at the bridge? And of course, then I know you went down to Mexico, down to the huge tank down there to recreate for your underwater scenes.
And the bridge. We built the bridge down there. When you visit, when you read about this story, and we all know about it, going out there, it sort of blows you away how tiny and insignificant this little tiny bridge is, and what a huge effect it's had on history, in this country. Because I do believe if Ted didn't have this accident, his trajectory would have been completely different.
Yeah.
I don't want to. And there's such specificity to the geography of that island. The way the main road curves, and then there's a dirt road that goes off to the right. It has a very distinct kind of architecture on the island, the salt box architecture, and the bridge itself, the way it's angled to the road and how kind of minuscule it is. I felt that these are all characters, in this famous story, and they're sort of famous characters in this story. And I thought to get the ghosts of Chappaquiddick in the film was well worth it, And it was a stretch for production to get out there for a few days, but I think there's a lot of value to it.
Yeah, but doesn't Massachusetts...
And that is the bulk of our interview with John Curran. There's still a few more tidbits that you'll get to hear on BehindTheLensOnline.net. But right now, I'm so excited to welcome Ashley Bell to Behind the Lens. Hello, Ashley.
Hi. Hi, how are you?
I am so happy to be talking to you about Love and Bananas. At the top of the show, I was telling the listeners that you and I first talked about this back in 2013 when you were doing press for the Marine Homefront.
Oh my God.
This has been, and because of the fact that David Castleman is executive producer, and I know David from my other life of 27 years in law. So.
Of course. Of course.
So when I first saw that Love and Bananas was done, and I think you saw it, I was posting on Twitter, I have to see this, I have to see this, I have to see this. It was well worth the wait, Ashley. This film, this documentary is beautiful, emotionally beautiful.
Oh my God.
I am so proud of you as a director that you made this journey. You should be patting yourself on the back.
Debbie, thank you so much. Truly, I cannot tell you how much it means to hear that. This film is just coming out and hitting audiences, so to get this response means absolutely the world. The story is about we rescue a 70-year-old partially blind Asian elephant and drive her literally across Thailand, 500 miles to freedom at an elephant sanctuary. And we document world-renowned Asian elephant conservationist Lek Chailert. And to have had the opportunity and Lek's trust to be able to be in her shadow and be under her wing and to tell this story, it was such an honor that we had to get it right. And I'm so happy that we're getting this national release from Abramarama, and we'll be able to raise awareness for Asian elephants.
Oh, and and that's so important, because when everybody thinks of the plight of the elephants, they think of the African elephants in the African plains. They forget about, and we talked about this 5 years ago. They forget about the Asian elephant. That there are plenty of them there, and you see great monuments to the elephant, and people forget that they are used for trekking and toting people, and then they come into play with a lot of the illegal logging that takes place.
Yeah. There you go. It's a very well kept secret what it takes to take a wild elephant and break them for captive use and for use in entertainment or for work. So one of the big aha moment was seeing the footage that Lek Chailert captured deep in the jungle when they break Asian elephants. It's a process known as pajan. And what happens is a baby elephant is taken away from its mother as a baby. It's put in a box. It's restrained in the box, and it's beat straight for 24 hours, for a week, until the bond between the baby and the mother is replaced by the fear of man and the fear of whatever tool man is using. If it doesn't work in the first week, it's repeated again for another week until it works. After that, elephants are taken to learn how to give rides or stand on their front legs or paint or play elephant polo or soccer. And, you know, if people know better, they do better. And people just are not aware that this is what happens to take a wild elephant and make them serviceable for entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're trying to get across. I mean, for the last 5 years, I've explained this documentary to people. I'm doing doing a documentary about Asian elephants, and they go, "Oh, I love elephants. I rode one. Oh, I love elephants. I got an elephant painting." And it's just because they don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, that all being said, we really wanted to make this film for like young audiences and for people to go to this film and understand the solution and what they can do to help elephants, no matter where they are in the world.
Mm-hmm.
One of the most exciting things was we just had our world premiere at the DC Environmental Film Festival. And, you know, you're like panicking all day and hope there are going to be more than 15 people. And we got there and it was sold out, but the audience was filled with kids and teenagers, like young teens, and everybody stayed. And we kept the film low on graphic content, so low on just enough footage to get people to understand the crush box situation. And then, bam, we're off to the races. We're off on an elephant rescue. The film is, you know, even in doing a documentary, of course I wanted to do a documentary, but I just wanted to take audiences on an elephant journey and on an elephant rescue. Because when I'd seen that footage from our conservationist, Lek Chailert, it was the most harrowing, hopeful, exciting, electric footage I'd ever seen. And I was like, that's the story. If audiences see the hope and the victory and the triumph of something like this, they'll get it, you know? So, it's been incredibly artistically rewarding and just an incredible honor these last couple of years to be working to get the spirit with which Lek works right, the humor with which she works right, and just to honestly tell an elephant story. You know, when I've seen with my own eyes when Lek takes off the chains and lets an elephant be an elephant when they're finally on her sanctuary, it's nothing short of miraculous. And I'm a very skeptical person. So
and that's
when
one,
I
that's
saw
one
these elephants, yeah, go ahead.
No, I
Sorry.
was going to say, that's one of the beautiful things with the way you have constructed this documentary, Ashley, from a directorial point of view, and you're also one of the producers on it, and you wrote it. You take us through the entire journey. You give plenty of facts. You have some lovely animation that the kids have to like when they're going to like it when they see that. So you've got something that appeals to them. Yeah. As you said, you have just enough of the harshness to let without going overboard. But then as you take us through the sanctuary and you take us through and talk about the herding and how when a new elephant comes in, how they get to wander and kind of pick and choose their own family that they want to be a part of. It is so connected. And through it all, there's you covered in mud and in one case, apparently elephant dung, on your face, no less.
You bet.
Talk about, giving it all for your craft, giving it all to a project. I defy anyone to provide me the name of another director who actually had elephant dung on their face in the name of making a film. I mean,
my God.
It's you.
Well, it was a blessing. So I was like, okay, I'm opening myself up to this moment.
But, the fact that here you are, a regular person coming into this world, and Lek takes you in, and we see you on camera. And by the way, your two cinematographers, I mean, it's like John and Roddy are great.
They're brilliant.
Their footage is fantastic. But we see the wonder on your face. We feel your wonder at seeing these magnificent creatures, which is a touchstone for any audience member that's going to see this film, Ashley.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much for recognizing that. When we started, because I'm an actress, I did not want to be on camera because it wasn't my story, I felt. And it just was Lek and the elephants, and the job was to tell the bigger story. You know, even as an actor, you're there because of something way bigger than you. You have a character to convey, you have to get the director's message across, and you have to serve the overall script, the piece that you're there. That was telling an elephant story for this film. And after the test shoot, we found that there needed to be a representative for the audience to go in and ask everything the audience would be asking. And once we kind of realized that there was an absence there and something that needed to be filled, we began to make choices in the pre-production and also the edit of, great, my role will be the bridge for the audience, to take them there, to tee it up and then get out of Dodge and let the elephants sing, you know what I mean? And let Lek sing. So thank you so much for recognizing that. That was, we wanted to handle that with immense care to make sure that was handled right. So there were a lot of choices in regards to where I help and where I get out. You know what I mean?
And you make it very clear in there, while Noi Na is trying to be introduced into a potential new family, you know, to see how they connect. And certain elephants were not too happy about the meet and greet. So you guys got out of the way. But you include that so that people realize, you understand, these are wild animals. You didn't sugarcoat this. That it's like, oh, it's all la-di-da, and you can walk onto an elephant conservation park and you can get down in the ground and you can cover yourself in elephant dung and you can play with the elephants and feed them. You make it very clear in the documentary, through the visuals, through your actions and interactions. Yeah. These are wild animals. These are creatures that belong to the earth. And you really break that down and portray it. And, you know, your editing has such a beautiful ebb and flow that keeps that whole idea going through the whole documentary.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yes, that moment, especially where I'm under them, was because of Lek. You know, Lek is mom to these elephants. She's their matriarch. And because I was with her, I was allowed to have that seat under the elephants. When you go to the sanctuary, you're immediately warned to keep a distance, because they are wild animals that are on a sanctuary, because the sanctuary is a hospice in every sense of the word. These elephants have been under severe psychological distress and physical abuse, and they need to they cannot go into the wild again, or a more wild, quote unquote, sanctuary. They need medical care and help, and that is why they are on this sanctuary. When even on the days when we felt like, oh, we have to get this bit of content and this bit of content and maybe do this setup, it was so interesting the way when you had an agenda out on the sanctuary grounds, it did not happen. The elephants, that's the elephants' land. That's the elephants' time. And I don't, mean to say this in a spiritual sense, but kind of in a spiritual sense, they're going to tell you the story they're going to tell you. You are dealing with huge wild animals, and you cannot have an agenda around them, which was, we felt that very early on. It was like, great, this is their space. How dare we? Pull out the cameras, get a huge lens on there, be very sensitive with any kind of equipment or sound equipment to interfere with their personal space, and watch what happens.
And
when they're themselves.
And you mentioned sound, and I have to just applaud you with the sound design and your composers who actually integrate the elephant sounds that they make talking to each other within your underlying scoring.
I am so happy you mentioned that. Ian and Sophia were brilliant composers. It's an original score, and we had recorded. Asian elephants are very, very vocal. They chirp and make trumpets and noises and communicate and are so expressive and vocal. And in the doing of it, it was this hope as we were filming that we would possibly somewhere in a star-crossed world collaborate with musicians or composers that would be open to working with these sounds in a way and just weaving them into the score. And what Ian and Sophia Holt-Caress were able to do with taking these elephant sounds and turning them into elephant wails, so to speak, or to stretch the sounds and incorporate them into the score was such a... When I first heard it, it just sent shivers through my body because I always wanted the audience to be feeling viscerally through their gut the story of an elephant.
Yeah.
And even though you're not seeing it physically, but you're being hit with this low reverberating sound, it's coming at you in a way that's only appealing to you physically or to your subconscious. And that was just always keeping the audience emotionally engaged in this elephant story. You know, and they handled it with such tact and such artistry, and it's such an innovative score. I thank you for mentioning that because I love talking about them whenever I can.
I mean, I love the score. I mean, I love the whole documentary, Ash.
Huge.
It is, you know.
Oh, thank you.
The whole thing is so amazing, you know. And unfortunately, you and I are out of time, but. I got to ask you before I let you go. I could talk to you all day about this doc, Ash. You know, we're going to...
Oh, man, thank you.
We're going to have to get... I'm going to
you.
try and come to the festival on the 20th for the private...
Yes.
You've got the West Coast premiere of Love and Bananas.
That's right.
At the Earth Focus Environmental Film Festival.
The KCET Earth Focus Festival. We will be having the LA premiere of Love and Bananas on the Sony lot. And then we are opening for a nationwide screening day around the country on Earth Day, Sunday, April 27th. And then we are starting our official rollout. We'll be opening at the Landmark in New York on the 27th of April, and then at the LA, at the Lemley in Beverly Hills on May 4th, and running for a week.
And then,
and we will, the whole team will be there for Q&As and to be part of the everything and to introduce you to this species and to take you through the night. So
well,
yes,
you and
everybody come out and join.
Well, and I'm going to run into you at one of these. One of these, I promise.
Fabulous.
I promise. And hopefully,
Great.
you know, maybe
Great.
even we can sit down again, and, you know, and do a more in-depth talk about the making of Love and Bananas.
Yeah.
Ashley, thank you so much for calling in today. I'm just... I've been waiting. I've been waiting for this film for 5 years. So
oh my God!
So you know, you had me. Yeah. My interest peaked for 5 years, woman. So you far surpassed.
Really an honor. Thank you.
You far surpassed it,
Thank
Ashley.
you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, and I will see you soon.
Wonderful. I'll see you at one of these.
Okay.
Yes, and everybody can find out screenings on loveandbananas.com. Yeah, all the information's there.
And Facebook and Twitter, it's everywhere. Thanks, Ashley.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And that was Ashley Bell talking about Love and Bananas. And now we're moving into our next guest, Tony Vidal and Jake. I got to get my notes. And Jake Thomas. Tony and Jake, are you there?
I'm here. How are you?
Hello, gentlemen. Well, it's so nice that, you know, you could take a break from shooting films about breaks and come on to Behind the Lens to talk about Baja. First of all, guys, this film is gorgeous to look at. Right out of the box.
Absolutely.
Right out of the box.
Thank you.
It is
And
beautiful.
credit to our DP, a guy named Jorge Roman, who's one of the premier Mexican cinematographers. We were very lucky to get him, and he was an absolute master with the red camera. So we got lucky on that one.
Oh, what lenses did you use on this one, Tony? Because you've got some magic hour shots in here that just keep going and going and going.
Well, part of it was we're in such a beautiful place that you almost didn't need to do much.
Mm-hmm.
We're in Loreto, Mexico, and also in Rosarito. And pretty much it's beautiful there a lot of the time. And lenses, I couldn't tell you that. You'd have to ask Jorge.
Okay.
Maybe Jake
I think we were using the Zeiss. We were using the Zeiss CB2s, I believe.
Oh, nice lenses. Zeiss is, as I've always said, Zeiss is beyond nice.
Yep.
Wow. So now for you as an actor, Jake, I mean, how hard is it to say yes to a project when you find out you're going to be shooting down in Loreto and Rosarito Beach, and it's all about being on break and having a good time?
Not too hard, and it really helps that we had such an awesome cast along with me. So yeah, it was definitely a dream job for sure.
How did you how do you approach a film like this? Jake, you're no stranger to film and television. You've done plenty of television. Lizzie McGuire, you've done films. How do you? But we've watched you grow up, but you're now transcending into definite adult roles.
Mm-hmm.
How do you? You're not Matt McGuire anymore. So how do you distance yourself in selecting roles like Brian to create a whole new identity at this stage of your career? Because this definitely moves you in, and this moves you out of the police procedurals we've seen you in on television. This really shows an adult Jake that is so much fun, albeit infusing a lot of nervous Nelly characteristics into Worrywart Brian.
Yeah.
But there is a great freedom to your performance that is refreshing to see.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's kind of been an evolution with my the characters that I've played over the years. It's been definitely an interesting range between the police procedurals where I am playing a serial killer murderer to the stuff that's much more lighthearted on Disney Channel. But yeah, I like the opportunity to play something that's more of a straight man, something that, Brian, he has his issues, but really in this film, he's trying to be the one who's making sense of all the madness around him. So I do like the opportunity to play a role like that. And I feel like it's another step in my evolution of my career.
Mm-hmm. Well, Tony, your casting in this film is so key. We've got to have chemistries that mesh amongst our four primary friends, Brian, Todd, Jessica, and Lisa. Then you introduce Carmen, who falls in very easily and naturally. But that's very difficult with an ensemble as closely associated within a film as your cast is here. What kind of challenges did you have to put this youthful cast together and then bring in, your more established character actors like Jose Zuniga and then Cynthia Stevenson and Kurt Fuller, who we have seen forever in everything?
Right. And let me just check something with you. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine.
Sure about that.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. It helps that I know a great casting director named Emily Schweber, and we spent a considerable amount of time casting the principal roles, and it was not an easy process, although at the end of the day, there's usually one person who comes along and is just the right person. And in a way, it's kind of up to the film gods to allow that to happen. I don't take a lot of personal responsibility for that, other than when I feel like, the right person showed up, I say, let's go with that. So we had our four main people, Jake and Chris and Michelle Deshawn and Ariane Mendy, and to be honest with you, the second choices in every role were not even close to the first choices. So it kind of fell into place. Now, in terms of the chemistry, these guys came down to Mexico and they immediately bonded. And we had Carmen, who's a French actress actually named Zoe Carafas, who was brilliant. And she came in from France, and they instantly hit it off and were riding all over the place in golf carts and having a great time and really getting into the roles and getting into feeling like they were a group of friends, which is what they are in the movie, and in real life they became that. So it just kind of happened, Debbie.
You know, now Jake, I heard a little chuckle there as he's talking about you guys riding around in golf carts. Why do I think that you guys were doing a lot more than riding around in golf carts?
I tell you, I mean, honestly, first week we were we were as thick as thieves. I mean, the first week, and then we were continuing on for the entire month. Just became such great friends. Every night we'd make sure we met up and got to talk with each other and spend time kind of building this friendship that was also really growing on camera as well. And then and really getting to see that grow on camera, I think really makes it magical too, because really everyone was so talented and everyone was such a pleasure to work with. It just made it such a great experience. And yes, there were plenty of taking golf carts for a spin around Loretto. So definitely true.
Now, I'm curious, Tony, you have this glorious, super tricked out luxury RV that all of them are piled into. I'm surprised you didn't cut down on budgeting and just make them all stay in the RV and live together.
Well, I don't know if they would have agreed to that, and we have a little union called Screen Actors Guild to deal with. So that would not have been possible, not in Mexico. Maybe if we had shot in the U.S., which actually brings me to an important point, Debbie, is that our movie was shot 100% in Mexico with a 100% Mexican cast. So in terms of authenticity, boy, it doesn't get any better than that. And I think it really shows in the movie. I mean, not just in the visuals, but in, there's a vibe to it. There's a Mexico vibe, and I'm really proud of that.
Yeah, the entire ambient nature of the film, from the opening shot, in the desert with the cactus, it feels like Mexico. It does not feel like the southwestern United States. It feels like Mexico. And all of your supporting players outside of your main cast members, were you using actual native actors or, just locals from the area as extras?
Well, a little bit of a combination of both. We had a local casting director who had some acting talent locally in Rosarito. In Loretto, there really wasn't anybody. So in those instances, if we had a day player who had a line or something, we would bring in a local. And in terms of all the extras, boy, they were regular, real people. So there's a sense of realism to the movie, at least in terms of the extras. Now, as you know from the plot, we have some fantasy elements and some really fun stuff too, and we exaggerate some things for comedies. But at its core, it's really about Mexico. I've been to Mexico quite a bit. Actually, I'm half Mexican myself. My mother was Mexican. So, I feel like, and this is not to say it's a film about Mexico. It's an American road comedy that's set in Mexico. So it's kind of a hybrid of just a fun comedy, but in a unique, foreign, authentic locale.
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, it harkens back to some of the 1950s, early 60s comedies that were out where, spring break, they don't just head to Palm Springs, they were heading over to Italy. That's essentially what you're doing here, and you've got the whole road trip vibe going on as well. And I really love that element of the road trip, the buddy comedy, road trip, and then you do have some really interesting plot twists going on that take us into the fantastical. But of course, anybody that's ever gone on winter break or spring break anywhere knows that Fantastical could be the operative word.
Yes, and as long as you live to tell about it, it's all good. We really wanted to do a road comedy, but with an extra dimension. So we have the plot, we have the comedy, we have the buddy stuff. At the same time, this is a film with a very good nature and a positive vibe, and each of the characters learns and grows, and by the end of the story, they're wiser and more knowledgeable, and they've had, dare I say, a transformative experience in their trip to Mexico. So the goal in the movie was to keep it lighthearted and uplifting, and also give that experience to the audience.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, Tony. I want to ask you about this, Jake. In a film like this, you don't expect the characters to really have the emotional arc and growth that they have. I love the trajectory that your character of Brian goes on in terms of the relationship with Carmen. And I have to say, your chemistry with Zoe is amazing. But even in his, his buddy chemistry with Chris's take on Todd, you really don't expect to see that depth of personal growth within a character in a film like this. Were you surprised when you read the script and realized that's what was happening with each of the characters?
Yeah, I liked it a lot because, for a single character, sure, to undergo some type of big change or arc within the story, but to get 4 characters all on the same journey, each really with their own individual arcs and growth that they're going through, be portrayed in different ways, and in some ways very smart and subtle ways, I think is a really special thing, and I enjoyed seeing that in the script when I first read it.
For you as an actor, Jake, have you developed a taste yet? Do you prefer working film or television, or still a hybrid mix of the two? Because in television, with a lot of the one-offs that you've done, you really don't get to explore a character the way you do in a film, and particularly a film like Baja.
Yeah, exactly. I would agree that, with some TV shows, especially those where you're not really wanting to see a growth, you're wanting to see a more serialized kind of program where the characters more or less stay the same. That's how a lot of comedies are for the most part. But it is nice to kind of sit with a character and really kind of make a mental map of where they're going in their own headspace throughout the film. And I do absolutely enjoy getting to do that. That said, I think TV too at the same time is changing so rapidly now, where we're seeing a lot of smaller projects that are getting web releases and stuff that you're getting to see kind of film quality or film-esque kind of plot lines and characters start to pop up.
Now for you as a writer-director, Tony, to piggyback on what Jake was just saying, how is this changing landscape of production for you in terms of, writing and directing films? Are you seeing a shift in anything that's opening up things wider for you, more avenues for your work, or expanding your own horizons in terms of storytelling?
Well, I kind of stick to one central concept, which is trying to have characters that arc and grow, and through a story to impart some kind of learning or journey or wisdom to the audience. So in that sense, what I do is kind of classical and is unchanging. And to be honest with you, it's all I know how to do. So I was trained as a feature film screenwriter at USC Film School a long time ago. I'm a big fan of the classics. I believe that great stories have 3 acts in the beginning, middle, and end, and characters that arc and they're about something. So I think that's universal, and that's never going to change, and that's what I do.
You know, where did the idea for Baja come from for you? Is this the kind of film where you just suddenly in the middle of the day one day it's like, winter break. What can I do with winter break? Because everybody's done so many spring break films. I can't remember
Right.
one that we actually. It was a winter break. So I'm curious where the
Well,
idea came from.
the idea came really from more of a thematic impetus, which is to portray characters who are in their early 20s, 21, 22, and revealing or putting them in a situation where they had to learn and grow and make a transition from youthful illusion to some kind of more mature awareness. Now, that's the thematic. Now, I'm not sure that came first. The other thing I can say is that I love road trip movies, and I do think they present a great opportunity for comedy, but also for expanding vistas, literally expanding vistas, and interior expansion as well. So, I don't know, at some point, somewhere, the idea came, I love RVs, I love road trip movies, I have this theme I want to explore, and it all kind of came together, and the final piece was giving it, some kind of extra magical cultural dimension, which was not that difficult because of my own Mexican heritage and experience traveling in Mexico. So the answer to your question is it kind of just slowly over time came together, and there was a certain threshold where it became, a road trip to Mexico with 4 young people.
Now, Jake, you've worked with many directors over the course of your career. For you as an actor, what was the experience like of working with Tony? Is he more of an actor's director, more of a technically oriented director? What's your take on the process of working with Tony in the making of Baja?
I would say Tony is very well-rounded in that, he's coming from a very strong writing background, and he knows the characters so well, and he knows how they really need to be portrayed. But at the same time, he, I think, had a very big influence in how everything played out in the film on the technical side as well. And I know he was there working very hard afterwards on just the visuals of the edits and how everything looks in post. It was enjoyable working with him. It's nice to work with someone who really believes in the source material, since it is his own, and really know what vision that he's going for.
Mm-hmm. Did you get to, I have to ask the big important question, did you actually get to drive the RV?
Oh, yes. And that was
oh God,
a little frightening. And honestly, though, I feel like Brian, the character Brian, it would be extremely nervous and nerve-wracked driving this very expensive RV, and I'm not even sure I was acting that part. That was real.
Yeah. Okay. Now, with all this laughter, Tony, all right, how much fear and trepidation did you have with all of these young people driving this RV, and you're thinking about the insurance on everything?
Oh my God! If you worried about stuff like that, you'd just be a complete basket case from day one. At a certain point, you trust in the film gods, and you say, "Please make this all work out." You can imagine 1,000 scenarios where things mess up, and in point of fact, there was a daily crisis every day. We didn't wreck the RV,
Yay!
But other things. We didn't wreck it, and I won't mention the ending of it. But there were daily crises that we had to deal with. And I think being a filmmaker and being a director is being like a navigator on a boat going down the river. You're a riverboat guide, and you're cruising through all kinds of hellacious rapids at all times. And your job is just to navigate through and get to the end and not get freaked out about every single rapid that you go through. So at a certain point, my trust muscle was built to a point where I believed that no matter what was going on, we were going to find answers and we were going to get it done. And right down to the very last day when we were hoping that this taco truck, I mean, look, we were hiring locals to provide prop vehicles, and there was this dilapidated taco truck, which we absolutely must have for the movie, and it had to show up for the very last scene on the very last day. And I was saying, I hope to God this thing shows up, because if it doesn't work, you know what? And he did, and we shot it, and then I was finally able to relax.
Of course,
I was kind of like Brian. I was the character Brian.
Yeah.
I have to say, in looking at the taco truck, I'm surprised it could even drive up. It didn't. It did not look.
Oh boy.
It did not look roadworthy. So,
You should have ridden in it.
somehow, I'm glad I didn't. But I'll take your word.
Yeah.
I'll take your word for it, Jake. So now that the film is ready to be unleashed onto the world this Friday, on April 13th, Friday the 13th, no less, what did each of you take away from this particular project that you'll now get to take forward with you into future work that you do?
After you, Jake.
Oh, okay. I would say that chemistry is such an important factor in making an ensemble film, and sometimes that can really make or break an ensemble, and how well the characters are portrayed, and how well the actors are able to give a convincing performance. And I think the casting was so well done, and Tony's choices were so great for the casting that everyone just kind of brought their own special magic to the film, and everyone's magic kind of complemented each other's, and it created something that really plays very well on camera, and is something that I think has made a very, very cute, very enjoyable, very fun and touching film to watch. And I really hope that that other people feel the same way when they watch it.
And what about for you, Tony?
Yes. What I'm taking away from this is a lot of gratitude that I had the privilege to make this film and got to work with all these great people and had this amazing cultural experience in Mexico. So, and as a filmmaker, it just gave me more experience, more confidence, more trust in the process. It's not about any particular person. It's about being an orchestra conductor and bringing together all the elements and dealing with all the issues that happen when you bring together a lot of creatives with a common goal. And ultimately, I'm just so pleased with the result and looking forward to doing more. I have another project that I'm working on setting up right now called 45 Minutes to Nowhere, and it's kind of a story of a young man working his way through the film business in Hollywood. But it is very much in the similar tones of Baja, but with Hollywood as the backdrop. But in any case, I'm ready to go on that one and learned a lot of stuff, and as I said, very thankful.
Well, gentlemen, I can't thank you enough for being on Behind the Lens today. This has been so much fun. I hope you'll both come back on the show again.
Absolutely.
Sure
Thank
thing.
you so much for having us.
Oh, my God. It's like,
Yeah.
I want you to know I already watched the film twice, just so you know.
Debbie, thank
you.
you.
I
Thank you. That
I
means a lot
found
to
it
us.
so enjoyable. I watched it once going through from an objective standpoint, just from looking at the cinematography and the music, and I have to say the end credits taco song stuck in my head forever. But then I went back and I watched it again just for the pure pleasure of watching it. And because it looks so darn good, I really wanted to see all those vistas again. I'm not going to lie. But now everybody will get to see it on Friday, April the 13th.
That's right.
Yeah, it's coming out in about 20 to 24 theaters. We're still nailing down a few more. across the country. And I don't know where you're based, Debbie. We have 3 screens in LA
Yep.
and 3 in San Francisco and a lot of other places.
Well, everybody, it will be, they can extend their spring break. For most people, spring break it ended, yesterday. Now they can feel like they're back on spring break if they watch Baja. Guys,
There you go.
Absolutely.
thank you so much, and I will talk to you both again soon.
Debbie, thank you.
Absolutely.
It's
Thank
been a
you.
pleasure.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye. And one day I'll really figure out how to work the little red buttons right. So that's all the time we have today. Next week, he's back. Steve Lee is here talking the Hollywood Sound Museum, bringing all kinds of cool sound effects stuff and a few surprises that you don't want to miss. So I can't encourage you enough. Watch on Facebook Live on adrenalineradio.com on Facebook. You can watch us live next week and see some particular treasures that Steve is bringing for us. So it's going to be a sonic explosion again with Steve Lee next week. Until then, I'm Debbie Elias. This is Behind the Lens.